We now continue with the discussion of the Trojan War. Hopefully, we'll reach even a portion of what happened to that moment that Troy has already fallen. Last time's discussion ended with Ares being struck with a spear thrown by Diomedes. That spear managed to pierce the body of Ares, as it has also been guided by Athena. By the way, let me put in some technical corrections regarding the identity of Thetis. Thetis, together with the other 50 Nereids, have been considered as daughters of Poseidon, as Poseidon is actually the god of the sea, the main god of the sea. These daughters of Poseidon, these Nereids, accompany Poseidon. However, if you look at the biological parents, the ones who really gave birth to these Nereids, we have the names of the sea god and goddess. The names are Nereus and Doris. So here's the name of the father. That's Nereus. And Doris is the mother, as Doris. Nereus and Doris are the parents, like the biological parents of the Nereids. However, for being considered as company of Poseidon, these Nereids have also been referred to as the daughters of Poseidon. I'm just clarifying things in terms of who their biological parents really are. Nereus and Doris are gods and goddess, are a god and a goddess of the sea, respectively. So we proceed now. The last part again was about Ares being struck by the spear hurled by Diomedes. At that moment that he got himself wounded, he rushed his way back to Olympus. And then that's where Zeus also saw him. And Zeus found it amusing to have seen Ares wailing in pain, rushing his way back to Olympus. At the moment that this happened, the Trojans were actually pushed back to the walls of Troy because no god remained there to help them or to defend them. So the Trojans were pushed back to the walls of Troy, and one of the brothers of Hector, the name is Helenus. Helenus the seer was actually the one who told Hector that in order to be helped by Athena, actually according to Helenus, Athena could come to help them, the Trojans. And in order for Athena to help them, they have to actually offer to her the best, the most beautiful robe Hecuba owns. Hecuba, their mother. So what they did was to look for the most beautiful robe in the wardrobe of Hecuba. They found one, and then they offered it to Athena with the words, "Lady Athena, spare the city and the wives of the Trojans and the little children." Robe. It was a robe, correct. Even if the offering was done by Hector to Athena, Athena denied the prayer, meaning Athena did not accept the offering. The suggestion provided by Helenus was ignored by Athena. And of course, you should know why, because Athena did not favor the Trojans because Paris did not choose him as the fairest among the goddesses. So when this happened, upon the refusal of the offering given to Athena, Hector had decided to go back into battle. He did not want to desert the rest of the Trojans. At that moment that he was about to lead the Trojans back into battle, his attention was caught by his wife, Andromache, who at that time was holding into her hands Astyanax, his son. So the wife of Hector is Andromache. The name of Hector's son is Astyanax. Yes, that's the spelling. Thank you for the spelling, Rain. For the spelling of Andromache, that's also the spelling of the name of Andromache. Andromache is the wife, Astyanax is the son. From the standpoint of a wife, of course, you can't blame her if she was worried of what's going to possibly happen to Hector. In fact, according to her, these were the words of Andromache. Stay here with us. Do not make me a widow and your child an orphan. So there is this desire from the end of Andromache that her husband Hector just um would rather not join the war anymore, because joining it might lead to him dying, and that would make Andromache a widow, and that would also make Astyanax an orphan. However, Hector's desire to continue to help the Trojans to defend Troy was stronger than what her wife desires. And so he left them and joined the battle. At this moment, Zeus ordered all of the immortals to stay in Olympus, and he himself went down to help the Trojans. And that actually placed the Greeks at such a disadvantage. I mean, Zeus taking part now in the battle was disadvantage so much disadvantageous to the Greeks. This led the Greeks to a standstill because they felt that there was no more chance for them to win this battle against the Trojans. The Greeks eventually decided to meet once more. They had a meeting one night, and in that camp, in that Greek camp, Agamemnon was enlightened by the words of Nestor. Who is Nestor? Nestor is the oldest among the chieftains, the Greek chieftains. Being the oldest, he is considered to be the wisest, even wiser than Odysseus. Odysseus is already witty he is wise, he is shrewd, he is witty as a Greek chieftain. But in terms of who among the Greek chieftains is considered to be the wisest, we have the name of Nestor. Nestor then enlightened Agamemnon that things would have not turned out this way had he not taken Briseis. Remember Briseis? The first woman that was in the conflict of Agamemnon and Achilles was Chryseis. Chryseis was given back to her father, but according to Agamemnon, he would not want not to have a woman as her trophy. So what did Agamemnon do? He sent two of his men to the tent of Achilles, and they took Briseis to Agamemnon. But Achilles told these men that soon they will regret that decision. And in fact, it was at this point that Nestor emphasized that that decision of Agamemnon of taking Briseis is something really worth to be regretted by the Greeks. Agamemnon, of course, realized it for himself that I think what I did was really wrong. I take the blame for this. So Briseis was sent back to the tent of Achilles. Agamemnon told his men to bring back Briseis to the tent of Achilles. Together with Odysseus, two of these chieftains were there to bring Briseis to the tent of Achilles with the hope that now that Briseis is back to him, Achilles would join the battle. But still, Achilles did not. Accordingly, Achilles felt as though he was dishonored by what Agamemnon did. The taking of Briseis, when Agamemnon took Briseis from him, Achilles felt that he was really dishonored, that he has lost his pride. So he decided that even if Briseis has already been given back to him, he still will not join the battle. Odysseus was there already, who tried to counsel Achilles of this matter, but Odysseus wasn't strong enough to convince him to join the battle. So Patroclus is now part of this equation. Patroclus, the cousin, Let's not anymore add any more flavor to whatever it is that's between Achilles, whatever is between Achilles and Patroclus. Leia got excited. Patroclus is part of the story now. This cousin, the dearest person to Achilles, is now part of the story. Uh, at some point, Patroclus did tell Achilles that if you would not want to defend the Trojans, then I will, the Greeks, then I will do it. I will do it for you. I will have to lead. I will be the one to lead your men. The men of the men of Achilles are part of a group known as the Myrmidons. Do you have the word Myrmidons? Maybe one of you could type in there the spelling of the word. That's the Myrmidons. That's the name of the group led by, yes, thank you, Juliana, led by Achilles. As as Patroclus was adamant on leading the group since Achilles won't do it, Achilles just even gave him the armor. But before Patroclus took it into battle, took the group into battle, Hera, let's go first to what happened to the gods in Olympus. Hera found for herself what devastation Zeus had done in his involvement in this battle. So Hera devised some plans. She thought of dressing herself in the best way possible so as to drive away Zeus's idea from joining the battle and helping the Trojans. She thought that if she could dress herself up, freshen herself so well, appear so enticing to the eyes of Zeus, then Zeus would not join the battle anymore. So she did. She let's try to look at the descriptions found in the book of Hamilton. She poured sweet sleep upon Zeus so that he would forget the Trojans. And then when he woke up, all that he saw were all that he saw was Hera, uh, Hera who appeared so appealing to his eyes. She borrowed Aphrodite's girdle, and it was filled with a lot of enchantments. So Hera really appeared as the best to the eyes of Zeus, and this made him love her more. And for a time, for a brief moment, this love overcame the heart of Zeus to help the Trojans. So at some point, Hera's plan worked. At that moment, going back to the human world, the battle between the Greeks and the Trojans had taken place. Since Zeus isn't there anymore, as Zeus's eyes are already for Athena, Ajax, one of the great Greek heroes, hurled Hector to the ground and was about to kill him. However, Aeneas lifted Hector up and was able to save Hector. At this moment, um, while in Olympus, suddenly Zeus snapped out from the illusion of beauty that Hera showed him, and Zeus realized that this was being done in order to deviate his attention from the battle that's going on, and while he was also trying to support the Trojans. So Zeus leaped up and saw that the Trojans were already in a fight, while Hector was struggling to survive. With this being seen by him, he turned fiercely to Hera. He got mad at Hera because he got the idea that, of course, he missed out some parts. He missed out the part by which Hector was hurled down to the ground because Hera was there. I don't know what they were doing, but because Hera was there doing something, not doing something, that's wrong. Um, Caressing him. Oh, let's put it there. Caressing Zeus. But Hera did not want to. Oh no, hell, Angel, I hope that's not how it went. Hera, of course, did not want to take the blame So what did she do? She blamed Poseidon instead. She used the name of Poseidon, and then accordingly, it was the sea god who had been helping the Greeks. So she did not want herself to be blamed for it. And what did Zeus do? He sent Iris, the rainbow messenger, to command Poseidon to withdraw from his help towards the Greeks, as there was already an initial order to ask all immortals to go back to Olympus. So Aeneas, the one who tried to save Hector, lifted Hector and brought him to Apollo. Apollo revived the fainting Hector, and Hector went back into battle again. As he was revived, he felt the Trojans and the Greeks saw such a great hero being revived by Apollo. There was so much strength and power coming from the revived Hector now. This is we now bring back ourselves to Patroclus. Now, Patroclus has been granted permission by Achilles to lead the Myrmidons. In the movie, though, if you try to trace it back to the movie, Brad Pitt, the actor who took on the role of Achilles, was not aware, did not know that his armor or his troop was being led by Patroclus. It was rather more of a surprise to him when he knew that his dear cousin died of battle. Because in the first place, he did not want, take note, in the movie, he did not want his dear cousin to join the battle. He trained him, yes, I don't know how the training went. He trained him in several art, in so many forms of art. Let's leave it there at art. There was so much skill that he showed him. Let's leave it there. Well trained, yes. But he did not want Patroclus to join the battle. I don't know what kind of war Achilles wants to have Patroclus being a part of, what battle or swordsmanship he wants Patroclus to actually master. So that's the that's one clear difference that we can find here between the movie and the story of Hamilton. Because in Hamilton's story, there was an approval that Achilles gave to Patroclus to lead the Myrmidons. Movie, normal, mind, ruin, coming from the book. John, it's not me, John. It's this book, John. This book did everything. So, in fact, Patroclus even told, oh my God, how big is this sword? It's a 2-inch sword, Rain, don't worry. Patroclus even told Achilles, you can keep your wrath while your countrymen go down in ruin. See? Patroclus was kind of this is a suggestive now of how disappointed Patroclus is of his cousin. Achilles being the supposed leader of the Myrmidons, and then Patroclus being disappointed of Achilles, because then again, Achilles was uh, more into his feeling of being dishonored at the time. No one leading the Myrmidons, Patroclus took it upon himself to lead them. And he wore the armor of Achilles. So here now comes Patroclus leading the Myrmidons. Myrmidons, fight, fight, fight. But of course, seeing that armor, Hector's eyes told him that that actually is Achilles. He did not know, of course, that it was Patroclus. It's not that when Patroclus joined the war, he openly declared, hi, I'm Patroclus, this is not Achilles. So it's just normal for Hector to target first the leader of the group. And that when a leader of a particular battle group is killed, that brings so much impact to the morale of the group. So the target of Hector at that time was Patroclus. Wait, the target was Patroclus. Okay. Battle target, the battle target. He wanted his sword to pierce Patroclus. Oh my God. And it did. Yes, it was not just a sword. Hector did not use a sword, he used his spear. Hector speared Patroclus to the ground. To the ground, yes, people. It's there. Hector's spear gave him a mortal wound. I'm just mentioning what Hamilton mentioned. Hector's spear gave him a mortal wound, and Patroclus' soul fled from his body down to the house of Hades. Patroclus died after having been speared by Hector. That's what happened. You can just leave it there, people. Like, it's really a spear. Look at the copy, people. It's a spear. That's a spear. It made mention of a spear. I did not come up with anything. Now, new target, Hades. Oh no, when Hades said, okay, I now have a new target. Persephone, you rest. John, what are you impliedly saying there, John? That Hades had said, Persephone, I've gotten tired and bored of it. Let's now have some new meat. Of course, no, that's not how it went. So now, the Greeks are still at a standstill with this battle, and the death of the new leader, in the death of Patroclus acting as the leader of the Myrmidons, the Greeks felt like they still have no chance of winning this battle. So they retreated. The son of Nestor, the name is Antilochus. Antilochus, maybe one of you could type in the name, announced or informed, thank you, Juliana, informed informed Achilles of the death of Patroclus. And of course, since Patroclus is so dear to him, Achilles' mind changed. It was by the death of Patroclus that Achilles eventually decided to join the battle. Not by the words of Agamemnon, not by the words of the king Menelaus, not by the words of his wise friend Odysseus, not by the return of Briseis to his camp, but by the death of his dear cousin Patroclus. Now this brings about more of a speculation of what's really between Achilles and Patroclus. Why, at the death of Patroclus, he really got over his pride and feeling of being dishonored? Why only at that moment he decided to join the battle? Maybe because he realized that there's no one else to spear now. And of course, no, for sure that's not the reason. He kind of actually in the let's just do this faster. To do this faster, what even? Achilles speared Hector. That's why Hector died. There's just something with this spear. There's just really something with spears in this battle. The spear that Achilles used was the one that killed Hector. Also, Hector speared Patroclus. Patroclus died. Achilles speared Hector. Hector died. So if someone gets speared, death is inevitable. Never be speared. Just don't get yourself speared. Before, at that moment, never spear somebody. Never let yourself be speared as well. At that moment that Achilles decided to join the battle, Odysseus told him, before we join the battle, I think our men should have their feed yet. They should still be fed. That was in the words of Odysseus. He said, our comrades, they must first take their fill of food and wine, for fasting men made poor fight. So Odysseus was of course concerned of the stamina and readiness of the Greeks to join the battle. But what did Achilles say? Our comrades lie dead on the field, and you call to food? Look at that part. Look at how selfish Achilles was at this moment. He is now brushing it onto the face of Odysseus that while fightings, battles are going on, as of this time, all that you can think of is food. But if you try to trace it back, when the Greeks were in an earlier battle with the Trojans, Achilles himself didn't join because of his pride. Now he throws this statement to Odysseus. But of course, that scornful answer of Achilles did not stop the Greeks from having their feed. They have to be fed yet. They have to have their share of food and wine for them to be ready to join the battle. And now they did. At this moment that the Greeks made their way back to join the battle, all of the immortals were told by Zeus not to participate in the battle between the Greeks and the Trojans. So what happened? Zeus hung in his golden balances two lots or two weights. One weight goes for Hector's name, and another weight goes for Achilles' name. The side that would actually sink represents the person who will die in that battle. And at that moment that he was placing the lots for Hector, Hector's side of the balance sank down. And that told the gods that Hector will really die in his battle with Achilles. So the Greeks and the Trojans continued on their battle in the human world. For the gods and goddesses of Olympus, they also had their battle. Athena fell Ares to the ground. Hera seized the bow of Artemis and boxed her ears. Poseidon tried to provoke Apollo, but Apollo did not anymore respond to the challenge. He refused the challenge because he knew all along that the same fate of death for Hector is just bound to happen. That even if Apollo fights with Poseidon, even if Apollo helps Hector, it still would be useless because it is already fated for Hector to die in his fight against Achilles. And he did. Hector really died. So there came to a point where the Trojans were again pushed back to the walls of Troy, and that Hector was one of them. But he later on told the King Priam, his mother, Hecuba, Queen Hecuba, that since he led the Trojans into this battle, it would be disgraceful to desert them. That he should be with them, even if it means his death. So now what happened is Achilles and Hector are part of the scene where they are to fight. Hector tried to make a bargain with Achilles that if Hector dies, his body be given back to his father, and he will do actually the same if he killed Achilles. He will give the body of Achilles to the Greeks. But this bargain was not accepted by Achilles. Achilles even called Hector a madman. And he added that there are no covenants between sheep and wolves, nor between you and me. So no agreement, no pardon, no bargain can be made between Achilles and Hector. That's the standpoint of Achilles. And I think all of these dispositions have been projected by Achilles as a matter of revenge for the death of his dear cousin Patroclus. He lost more or less some sight of for reason because all that he wanted to do is to avenge the death of Patroclus. So at that moment that the fight between Achilles and Hector was about to happen, Athena accompanied Achilles. Athena was with Achilles in this fight. At that moment, though, Aquila, the son of Athena and Achilles, Athena tricked Hector by appearing as Deiphobus beside Hector. Again, Athena in the fight between Hector and Achilles, Athena was with Achilles. However, she tricked Hector by appearing as Deiphobus beside him. So Hector thought that in that battle, in that fight, Deiphobus was with him the entire time. But actually, that was just Athena disguised as Deiphobus, his brother. So the battle went on. Hector tried to strike his spear on Achilles. Did not make it because Achilles' body was so fortified and strong. Strong body, no spear, no weapon could wound him. But the spear that Achilles also tried to hurl a spear at Hector, but Hector was able to avoid that spear. Athena gave that same spear back to Hector. Hector tried to call for Deiphobus to help him, but to his surprise, there was no Deiphobus beside him. Because the Deiphobus that he saw was Athena disguising herself, tricking Hector. So at that moment, Hector was killed, speared by Achilles because, what was Hector also wearing at that time? Hector was wearing the armor of Patroclus, the armor that Patroclus borrowed from Achilles. Diba Achilles Achilles did not want to join the battle. Patroclus wanted to do it on his behalf. In order to do that, Patroclus had to wear the armor of Achilles, and Achilles said yes. When Patroclus was killed by Hector, Hector took for himself the armor of Patroclus, the supposed armor owned by Achilles as well. Achilles knew all along that there is an opening in the throat of that armor. And that's where Achilles hurled his spear. So Achilles speared Hector by the throat. That must have been some amazing spear. And the accuracy of Achilles in hurling or throwing that spear was more than perfect for it to really make it through that opening, killing Hector. I like the description provided by Hamilton that Hector's soul flew forth from his body and was gone to Hades, bewailing his fate, leaving vigor and youth behind. When that spear made its way successfully to the opening in the neck, somewhere near the throat, not neck, somewhere near the throat of Hector, that was the end of Hector. So deep down Hector's throat. The spear went that deep to kill Hector by the throat. I don't know though where's I think it was not really mentioned where Patroclus was speared by Hector. So when this happened, Achilles is now dead. The dead body of Achilles was trapped onto the chariot of Achilles. And this is also similar now to what you could recall in the movie. The dead body of Hector was dragged around the place, the city of Troy. And of course, you can just imagine what would have happened to the body of of Hector after it was being dragged around the city. This act, this decision of Achilles was disliked by the gods and goddesses of Olympus. They did not like this because according to them, it was an abuse of the dead, displeasing so much to the eyes of the gods and goddesses of Olympus. However, Hera, Athena, and Poseidon did not find it displeasing, but to the rest of the gods, they found it so much displeasing to them. So Zeus sent Iris to King Priam and told King Priam to get the dead body from Achilles, and that King Priam should prepare a ransom in exchange for the dead body of Hector. Not the dead body of Achilles, the dead body of Hector. So the aged king went to the tent of the Greeks, and then King Priam was met by Hermes, and Hermes disguised himself as a Greek soldier. That is also to protect King Priam from the rest of the Greeks. Who killed Achilles again? Wait, we are not yet there. As of this time, the ones who are dead are Patroclus and Hector. As of this time, Patroclus and Hector are the ones who are dead. So when King Priam appeared now in front of Achilles, in the desire to get the dead body of Hector, at first Achilles was hesitant because according to him, the dead body of his enemy, especially that great Trojan enemy, was a prize to honor his victory over the Trojans. But at that moment that King Priam clasped his knees and kissed the hands of Achilles, it was such a moment that slapped Achilles by the face. It was an eye-opener to him of how a father has lost a son. So that opened the eyes of Achilles to forego with his pride. He saw a moment of, what's the better term for this? He reached a moment where there's a change in his outlook as a Greek warrior. He swallowed his pride, and then he told King Priam, he asked King Priam of the number of days that the Trojans intend to hold a funeral for Hector. Because in that same number of days, Hector promised King Priam that the Greeks would not lay siege to the Trojans. There was a supposed ceasefire equivalent to the number of days that the Trojans held a funeral for Hector. That was the promise that Achilles gave King Priam. And it happened. For 9 days, the Trojans lamented for the death of Hector. And after the 9th day, they burned his body, and the burned body was quenched with wine. The bones were gathered and placed in a golden urn. And that is the end of the Iliad. We now go to the second part of the story, which is of the fall of Troy. This now leads to the question of Nice on who killed Achilles. It has long been foretold by Thetis to Achilles that at the moment that one great Trojan hero dies, his death is supposed to follow. That great Trojan hero being referred to in the prophecy shared by Thetis to Achilles is no other than Hector. So Achilles already knew all along that his death is already on its way. And it happened. when Hector was already dead, the Trojans still found some support coming from one Greek god. Oh no, sorry, not Greek god. Coming from one prince. The name is Prince Memnon of Ethiopia. Prince Memnon is the son of the goddess of the dawn. This goddess of the dawn is known as Eos, E-O-S. That's the name of the goddess of the dawn, and that her son, Prince Memnon, supported the Trojans in their attempt to defend their city from the Greeks. Prince Memnon and Achilles had a battle, had a fight between the two of them, and it was at that moment, it was that moment which is considered as the last the last glorified battle that Achilles had been a part of. Achilles was successful in killing Prince Memnon, but at that moment that he fell in the Saian gates, Paris shot an arrow that killed Achilles. Where was Achilles hit by this arrow? He was hit in his heel, because Apollo guided that arrow to hit Achilles in the heel. Why was his heel the point of the cause of his death, or the reason why he died? Because at that moment, this was mentioned before, in his birth, in the birth of Achilles, Thetis attempted to make him immortal. Immortalizing him meant dipping him in the river Styx. Since Thetis held the infant Achilles by the heel, there was one part of his body which was not submerged in the river. And that part came to be his only vulnerable part. The arrow released by Paris was guided by Apollo to hit Achilles by the heel, and that led to Achilles' death. So that now answers the question of nice. Who killed Achilles? It is Paris. At that moment that Achilles died, Ajax carried his body, while Odysseus held the Trojans back. So the battle was still going on. The body of Achilles was eventually burned, because that's how they honor heroes. The ashes of the dead body were all placed together in an urn, and this time, for the case of Achilles, his ashes were placed together with the ashes of Patroclus. So the ashes of Patroclus and Achilles shared the same urn. The arms, or the armor, what happened now to the armor worn by Achilles? It is just common practice that the armor of one great hero or leader will have to be worn by someone else, by a person whom the army deems to be worthy of wearing it. This time, we have two names, the names of Ajax and Odysseus. These two came out to be candidates as to who's going to wear the armor of Achilles. A secret vote happened among the chieftains, and Odysseus was voted as the Greek person who will be wearing the armor of Achilles. This was not seen so well by Ajax. Ajax saw it as such a dishonor on his name. I mean, we can't blame him, because the consequence is the one who will wear the armor will be honored, while the one who will not be voted for it will be dishonored. So Ajax saw it as dishonoring to his name, to the point that he thought of killing Menelaus and Agamemnon. He was then determined to kill Menelaus and Agamemnon, because Ajax overthought it already that Odysseus probably won, because Agamemnon and Menelaus connived against him. One night, as Ajax tried to go into the camp of Agamemnon and Menelaus, determined to kill them, Athena Athena influenced Ajax to become so mad to the point that instead of seeing the Greek army, instead of killing the Greek army, he instead killed the flocks and herds together with the Greeks at the time. Instead of killing Greek people, Ajax killed animals because his mind was driven to madness as influenced by Athena. Athena did this in order for Agamemnon and Menelaus not to be killed, nor for any of the Greeks to be killed by Ajax. Right after killing all of these animals, Ajax gained back his sanity, and then he realized the great mistake that he did. And he was so embarrassed by what he did, he eventually decided to kill himself. He drew his own sword and killed himself. But the Greeks did not burn his body. Again, the burning of a body is reserved only for those considered as noble or great. After what Ajax did, he has actually been dishonored. So they just buried the body of Ajax. Accordingly, a suicide should not be honored with a funeral pyre and an urn burial. So now, there is still a problem, even if Hector is dead, there is still a problem of how to conquer Troy. Achilles is dead. Ajax, one of the great Greek champions, is dead. Troy is still standing. Its walls are still strong. The troops, the Trojan chieftains, the Trojan men are still strong despite the death of Hector. So what should they do? Here now comes the plan provided by Calchas. Calchas, remember the prophet, the soothsayer. Calchas told the Greeks that among the Trojans, there is a man named Helenus. Helenus, the seer, the brother of Hector. Helenus should be captured because the Greeks could learn from him how to eliminate or how to conquer Troy. So that's what the Greeks did. They captured Helenus, and they were able to actually do it. They captured Helenus. Helenus told them that the Greeks, that Troy would only fall against, if it fights someone, the city would fall only if someone from the Greeks has brought the bow and arrow used by Hercules. The bow and arrows of Hercules are weapon. Who saw the one with Henry Cavill is there? It's not Wrath of the Titans or War of the Titans, where the gods came down. It's a movie. It's a movie. And then there's actually a bow and arrow there that was used to open Tartarus. Immortals, no? So the movie. The title of the movie is Immortals. The bow and arrow used to open Tartarus was that same bow and arrow referred to by Helenus here. This bow and arrow, these belong to Hercules. But accordingly, these items are not owned by Hercules anymore because Hercules was killed by Prince Philoctetes. Prince Philoctetes is now the one who possesses these items, the bow and arrows of Hercules. With that bow and arrow, they'd be able to supposedly conquer Troy. So what they did was to look for Philoctetes. They were able to get it. They were able to, with the use of Odysseus, with the use of the wise and witty or shrewd mind of Odysseus, they were able to get the bow and arrow from Prince Philoctetes. But deserting him would be kind of wrong. It's there. Philoctetes is injured. He is. Let's use the exact term. He is, I'm looking for the term used by Hamilton. That it's here. Leaving the poor wretch alone, deprived of them, they just could not do it. The Greeks could not do it. So they brought Philoctetes with them. In fact, Philoctetes was so important of a figure that Philoctetes was the one who was able to kill Paris. So Philoctetes made a great contribution of killing Paris. However, killing Paris was not a great loss. According to the book of Hamilton, killing Paris was not a great loss to the Trojans. What even happened was, when Philoctetes wounded Paris, Paris begged to be carried to Mount Ida, where Oenone was actually staying. Because Oenone knows how to cure him. He was actually brought to Mount Ida, but she did not cure him. She just allowed, Oenone just allowed Paris to die. And you can't blame only Oenone of this decision. Remember, at the first part of the story, in the judgment of Paris part, Oenone was with Paris on Mount Ida, but he left her for Helen. After having won the bribe provided by Aphrodite, he left Oenone in Mount Ida. And so, to play it fair, Oenone this time, the woman Paris was asking for some help, refused to help Paris, refused to help him. He died. Paris died. In the death of Paris, Oenone also went away and killed herself. So now, Troy did not fall because Paris was dead. So that's what I meant earlier when I said that the death of Paris was not a big deal to the Trojans. The Greeks then learned that there is one item found in Troy that seemed to protect Troy from falling. This item is the most sacred image of Pallas Athena, and this item is known as the Palladium. The presence of the Palladium in Troy was seen by the Greeks as the protector of the city. While it's still there, Troy cannot fall. So there is a plan, a devised plan to steal the Palladium from the Trojans. Diomedes and Odysseus carried out this plan, and Diomedes was the one successful in taking the Palladium outside of Troy, of course with the assistance of Odysseus. So now, the plan to eventually conquer Troy meaning make Troy fall to the ground, is really almost on its way. But doing it in an actual fight or in an actual battle would probably be not such a good idea, because it has already been proven years and years back that in a physical fight, the Trojans could outdo the Greeks. So Odysseus took the chance to think of a plan by which the Trojans can be caught off guard. There came the invention of the wooden horse, which is eventually later popularly known as the Trojan horse. Of course, as you have already been so familiar of this wooden horse, it is such a big structure, and it's big enough to accommodate a lot of people inside it. But what's the rationale behind the creation of this wooden horse? Odysseus crafted a plan, a story, so that it would be so plausible or believable that the Trojans will have to accept the wooden horse, that the Trojans cannot refuse the wooden horse. So here's the story that Odysseus created. There is a man among the Greeks. The name of the man is Sinon. This man was this again. This is in the story of Odysseus, which Sinon relayed to the Trojans. Sinon was supposed to be an offering, a Greek offering to appease Athena for stealing, for the Greeks took the Palladium. To appease Athena, the Greeks had to offer someone, and that someone was Sinon. Sinon escaped the Greeks, the Greek army, because he did not want to be sacrificed. In that attempt to escape the Greek army, he fled to Troy. When the Trojans heard this story of Sinon, they were so convinced, and they promised Sinon that he could live as one of them, as one of the Trojans. So what about the wooden horse now? The wooden horse, this is an extension of the story. The wooden horse has been created by the Greeks of that size so that the Trojans would have second thoughts of accepting it. And if the Trojans do not accept the wooden horse, Athena would get mad at the Trojans. In order for Athena not to get mad at the Trojans will just have to accept the wooden horse despite its size. All of these things are within the story created by Odysseus. So, from the standpoint of the Trojans, they would not want Athena to get mad at them, so they accepted the wooden horse despite its humongous structure. Its gigantic structure was so problematic because it really posed so much of a problem why something that big was placed at the doorstep of Troy. In fact, when the Trojans checked the shores of Troy, the Greek army wasn't anymore there. Where were the Greeks? They fled to a nearby island so that when the Greeks from the wooden horse come out to attack Troy from the inside, they can just also come in right away. Or if the wooden horse be burned, the only ones in the wooden horse are the people who will die, while those on the nearby island will remain alive. So again, the story of Odysseus was so plausible that the Trojans were convinced, they were really convinced to bring the wooden horse inside the walls of Troy. In fact, to add in, Poseidon supported this story. How did it go? We have a Trojan priest named Laocoon, Laocoon. By the way, we'll end it here. It's already 10:49. We have the Trojan priest named Laocoon who told the Greeks. No, sorry. We have the Trojan priest named Laocoon who told the Trojans not to accept this wooden horse because Laocoon, together with his two sons, found the story of Sinon to be very suspicious and unbelievable. He doubted this story. But what did Poseidon do? He sent two serpents from the sea and coiled themselves on Laocoon and his two sons, killing them. So when the Trojans saw this, they felt that if they will not really accept the Trojan horse, the wooden horse, Poseidon will attack them. In order to prevent this from happening, they really accepted the wooden horse. But mind you, Cassandra, the daughter of King Priam, warned the Trojans, warned the king not to accept the Trojan horse. Cassandra felt that something's not right with the Trojan horse. But did they listen to Cassandra? No. Why did they not listen to Cassandra? Because Cassandra has been cursed not to be believed in by anybody, and that curse was by Apollo. So we will leave it there for now. Tomorrow, can I meet with you tomorrow? Friday, 9:45 to 10:45. Same time, 9:45 to 10:45. I'll meet with you tomorrow, ha, so that we can finish this. Tomorrow, Friday, we'll meet at 9:45 to 10:45. So the last part of our story is about Cassandra not being believed at by the Trojans.